what it's like to be groomed by an older man.
Yep.
This honestly is not that much of an exaggeration of what it feels like. It does feel like somebody spit poison in your face and your helmet melted to your head.
Hmm.
It honestly does feel like that.
Percy Jackson.
Are we prepared to talk about very traumatic things today?
No.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So our chapters are heavy, and we also just started Rick's first book, Cold Springs, and
Hmm.
that one, the setup, which is as far as we went, really, is super super heavy.
Yeah. That's why Becky told us to read it
Yeah,
because we're us.
yeah.
And I looked for the Cold Spring book, we're gonna do like a one podcast episode about it instead of like every week like we usually do. But I'm doing like little podcasts just going through the chapters as I read them for free on our Patreon if anybody wants to listen to that. Um, because it is just like very interesting. It's a
Hmm.
Rick Riordan book from before he wrote Percy Jackson. It came out in 2003.
Hmm.
And I read it when I was in high school, which is like the craziest thing. I was a senior in high school, and I don't remember anything about the book besides that it helped me figure out something that definitely helped me as I went forward in life. But I don't want to say
Hmm.
what that is yet. But I just remember thinking that and being like really grateful that my mom gave me that book to read, and I wanted to like tell them thank you. But
Yeah.
there's like no way to do that back then. Like I remember thinking like could I like send them a letter, and but I was like I don't think so cuz like email stuff wasn't really a thing really back then yet.
Yeah.
But it is a book that has a lot of trigger warnings. I have all the trigger warnings listed on my post on Patreon, but it is, about it essentially is a story about like how the ripple effects happen when somebody young dies especially.
Hmm.
Um and it's about the troubled teen industry
Yeah.
and Rick calling them out for the pieces of garbage that they were back in 2003 when nobody knew that. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like this is one of those things that is hard to like state just for people who are a lot younger than us, but nobody knew that like back
Hmm.
then. People didn't know that at all. I had a like a childhood friend of mine got sent to one of those camps
Hmm.
when I was like in high school or right after I graduated. It was like it's obviously fuzzy because it's me trying to remember my adult like my childhood life, but somewhere in that time, she got sent to one of those because she got addicted to cocaine and got caught doing it at in our like our high school bathroom.
Hmm.
But I think about that now and hope that her experience was okay. Like she's okay. Like she came back and did like a lot of therapy in the years since then. She's married and has at least one kid and everything, so she's okay in
Hmm.
that way, but and seems all right, like happy and all that kind of stuff. But I still wonder what that was like.
Yeah.
Because back then, I do remember back then asking my mom, like, why did they send her to Utah?
Hmm.
Because I live in Wisconsin, and we were like,
Yeah.
why would they send her to Utah? We have a mental health hospital literally like 10 minutes from
I mean,
my
just to give
house.
people like a cultural like kind of marker for how we all like knew of these camps, at least in popular culture before this, is I think it was the Maury show where he was sending people left and right, right?
And
Where
Dr. Phil,
yeah,
you
no,
know
Dr. Phil
the
was worse about it. Yeah, so Dr.
that one
Phil,
girl. What's that
yes,
one girl?
Bad Baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bad Baby famously showed up on Dr. Phil, and she was a very troubled teen at the time. Like, she was getting in fights. She wouldn't listen to her mom. I don't remember the full details. You could definitely find the clips online because she went viral for that. That's where the
Mm-hmm.
whole Catch Me Outside thing came. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, she didn't really speak out about her experience in the camp that she got sent to as a result of that segment until the Paris Hilton stuff kind of came up too. And
Mm-hmm.
she has called out Dr. Phil, like, and made content on it before. That's definitely worth watching. But yeah, that was most of our experience around this was this idea of like, oh, there's these kids that are so bad that like this is the only thing that you can send them to. And that's the way
Hmm.
media portrayed it. We didn't know what actually happened in those camps, and we didn't understand that they weren't actually giving a fuck if the kids got better.
No. And I will say that it was really nice reading this book that Rick Riordan wrote in 2003, and the way that he depicted the main character guy trying to take one of the one of the young people that he was trying to take, they like made it very obvious like this is horrible. Like
Hmm.
he like was literally chasing her down the street and was like trying to handcuff her, was shoved her in the back of a car where she was like yelling for help from people in the back seat, and he was very dismissive about, oh, nobody's going to help you,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it was just like horrifying. Like when you're reading the book you're like, oh my god, like I am so glad that he wrote it like that. But I do wonder like how did he get how did he figure this out? It's because
Yeah.
I mean like
It
so
has to be some connection as a teacher of like
yeah.
a
what I
student
was
disappeared for a few months or something.
What I was going to say was when I realized that I read this book, that my mom gave me this book to read, one of the characters in the book is somebody who comes from like a family that makes him get judged by like almost everybody in the book as being like a bad person when he's not at all. And that's a lot
Hmm.
of the students that my mom had were kids like that. They came from families that expected you to just be involved in like the gangs that they were in or crime or whatever, and they were trying to show these kids that there was like another way. And that's why she found that book in the first place, because she tried to find things like that for those kids
Hmm.
to show examples that you don't have to do that, even if the family pressure in that is obviously out of this world. But just trying to show them examples of that it is possible to make a different decision than everyone else in your entire family.
Hmm.
And when Becky Riordan literally told us to read this book. So that's why we're reading it. Like I don't even remember how that conversation started, but she literally said like you guys should read this on your podcast series about trauma, and we were like, okay. So when she started talking about that, I asked my mom about it afterwards or told her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, I remember reading that book. That's really weird." And I told Becky that my mom and I somehow read this book when I was in high school. That's so weird. And I told her my mom's an ED teacher, and that's why she probably had that book. She used to get a lot of books that were kind of like that kind of book, like if Rick didn't become famous, just like a one-off sort of book about all these different things. It was weirdly a lot easier to get books like that back then. There was these three small town bookstores right by our house that had a lot of just like random books like that all the time, and she would get ones all the time, and then if she liked them she would give them to me and have me read them. I did that all the time. And when I told Becky that, she was like, in a roundabout way, she said my mother-in-law was an ED teacher. And I was like, Rick's mom was a ED teacher? That explains literally everything.
Hmm.
Everything about why I like this series so much. Because if you don't know what an ED teacher is, it stands for emotionally disturbed, and it's for kids that it ranges from, they can be people who are like high support needs, autistic people. Like she had a lot of kids. She still sees some of those people now, and now they're like 25 or something, that were like non-speaking autistic kids. There were some people that were like schizophrenic. There were some kids that were bipolar. I didn't even know what bipolar was because we called it manic depression back then, and that's what she would say is like what those kids had basically. There were some kids, like I said, that just came from families that were trying to pressure them into dropping out of school and doing like crime and gang violence kind of stuff when they didn't want to. There was just a wide range of kids with different things. And my mom taught kids that were from fourth to sixth grade.
Hmm.
And so it just to like conceptualize the idea that some of these kids were literally like 10 and were being
Yeah.
pressured by their family to drop out of school and join the gang that they were in. Or they would show up to school high on drugs because somebody like acid. There was one time that somebody's family member gave a 10-year-old that she was teaching acid, and he was hallucinating when she was in his classroom. My mom was the kind of person that would just like yell at everybody when they were being not nice to her students, which is where
Hmm.
I get it from.
Yeah.
um, that was just like how she was all the time. And so when you are that teacher and when you're the kid of a student, you're the kid of a parent who does that job, you just see all these things and you just know that even outside of my own life experience, you just know that nobody helps them.
Hmm.
Because this kind of stuff was happening all the time. And she did meet with social workers and CPS and stuff, but there just, most of the time, nobody was like really paying that much attention to it all. And so when you see that kind of stuff, and especially then you grow up to be a teacher like Rick is, like this book is set in San Francisco, like comparing how people in San Francisco versus Texas like would take care of these sort of kids. And those are the two places that they've lived. And just I think comparing like how people are treated when you go to like a more upper class sort of private school in San Francisco, like Bay Area versus in Texas, where they
Hmm.
just don't care that much about you.
Yeah.
Like rich people get to like make mistakes like that and recover when poor people don't. It's just
Yeah.
it's honestly that simple. You just don't get that kind of stuff. But either way, it's it's really fun to read it. Becky brought up the fact that she wanted to adapt this book
Hmm.
because she wants to adapt it. Rick does not. He like wants to like leave it behind because that basically he turned in his manuscript right before September 11th, and whatever the original story was, they made him change the entire thing. She like
Yeah.
said that to me basically, and so I can understand why he wouldn't after that. He wouldn't want to really do it, but that's basically what it is. Is she thinks that there's still something there to adapt into something, and I'm like, well, let's help with that.
Yeah.
Because I would really like to see like a Y, like Becky described it, like YA, like a YA level story run by the Riordans talking about kids that end up in troubled teen camps. And even like the kids that end up like addicted to drugs. The way that they showed like the first girl who dies is very empathetic and just
Hmm.
saying like she was using them because she was depressed. A lot of times people look at addicts as if you're less than or you're just like physically addicted to it or something, but it's usually because you're just really sad. And I
Hmm.
like that that's even though she dies and that's like the first thing that happens in the story, she dies because she wants to die, not because she's like addicted to drugs and accidentally overdoses. She does it on purpose
Hmm.
because she doesn't want to live anymore. And that's usually why people do that kind of stuff, but that's usually not how people look at it at like people who are addicted to that kind of stuff. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that they did that already, and we're only a little bit into the book, and so it's interesting to think about where the story will go from here because there's already all kinds of crazy stuff happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the main or the first girl that dies is the main character's daughter, and
Mhm.
yeah, as you said, it's like almost planned, and it's such a sad scene. But even more so, I kind of love that it goes in this like you really feel the consequential trauma because his daughter, the main character's daughter, when she overdosed, she was babysitting a 5-year-old, and the 5-year-old's the one who finds her. And
Mhm.
so in the next chapter, when we jump forward, that's who he's going to go collect, is
Mhm.
this girl who saw his daughter die.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it is, I'm definitely hooked in of like, where is this gonna go from here?
Mhm. It'll be really fun. I already really like the Mallory's boyfriend
Hmm.
because he just Jesus is dealing with way too much. And so that'll be really interesting to see how that goes. Especially because the main character guy hates him for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
That's that was some of the funny parts about this book is literally the main character guy. Everyone doesn't like him, and I'm like, oh, thank God. Like everyone just like talks about what an idiot he is all the time, and he is a
Hmm.
gigantic idiot. Like his ex-wife literally says, "Your job is to kidnap children. Go away." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Thank you, ma'am."
exactly.
But that's something that we're doing. Other than that Percy Jackson stuff, they when New York Comic Con was last weekend, which I forgot about until it was like actively happening. they put out posters for the new season, which sums up really, really well everybody's story for
Hmm.
the new season and overall, honestly, but especially for season two. It's always really satisfying to see promotional stuff like that that's just like says it very clearly and makes everything really easy for people to understand, which doesn't happen that much with
Yeah.
TV. But that's like the main stuff that's going on. People are talking about stuff with season three filming, but I refuse to talk about the specifics of that because it bothers me that people know so much about where they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
I don't like that. The way people are finding that information out now is websites
Yeah,
that are not
it's
meant for fans to
questionable.
look at.
It's questionable for sure. We do know the kids are filming a very heavy scene soon, though. So for this week, for the chapters for The Last Olympian, we read 16, 17, 18, and boy, did we read a lot. Like, I found myself during the battle scenes in chapter 16 really trying to figure out what's going on and, like, where they are and looking at my little map and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can just, like, when you map out the actual streets he's saying, you see everybody closing on Olympus. Like every
Yeah.
time he talks about enemy positions that Percy's seeing in dreams and stuff, you really can tell they're getting closer and closer and closer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just like surrounding them and getting closer, and where they don't have any way to get out.
Yeah. Um, and they're losing demigods because people are getting injured and dying, and they don't even have the Ares cabin with them still at this point. So, like, they are not in a very good situation. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so we left off kind of on a cliffhanger because they see Rachel Dare in a helicopter, but the pilot fell asleep under Morpheus's spell as soon as they crossed. I forget which river, the river. But yeah, as soon as they kind of got into Manhattan
Mm-hmm.
proper, he fell asleep. Rachel's actually still awake, is one of the first things that we find out. That she's just completely like freaking out. She's in there screaming. Um, and so we have Annabeth and Percy going up on Guido the Pegasus to go and save her. Um, Now, saving her actually goes really, really terribly at first because Guido, at Annabeth's direction, gets really close to the helicopter, but then he hurts his wing on the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And Annabeth was trying to climb into it to see if she could get in, and she's left suspended while Percy and the Pegasus are nosediving to the street. Yes. So then he sees Rachel trying to lift Annabeth up. So Annabeth does get in. He doesn't know what's happening because he's in his own little like life and death situation, but when he finally gets to the ground, he sees the helicopter was veering towards a building, and right before it hit, it caught control and it descended. Um, and the thing that I wrote a note in this is like, this is the beauty of listening to people's special interests because the reason Annabeth was able to get in and figure out these controls was because of her dad and
Mm-hmm.
because of Daedalus. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she paid so much attention to these men's special interests that it actually saved her life.
Yeah, and she just like guessed and was
Yes.
actually right.
Yeah, yeah, she says I took my best guess on the controls, which like helicopters are supposed to be pretty hard, girly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. Now, I got a little mad at Percy for a second because when Rachel plops down, she says, "I'm sorry, Percy. I didn't mean to. I always mess things up." And his first thought is it's kind of hard to argue with her. Um, but I don't know that he's looking at the situation for what it is because I have to say it's Annabeth's jealousy that messes it up, not necessarily Rachel herself.
No.
Yeah. And so he does eventually try to like pacify her and say it's okay. Um, and he knows that she's there to deliver a message because of the dream. She tells him that she's been like having more and more of these visions that aren't her seeing through the mist. There's something else, and that she's been writing down all of these lines in ancient Greek. The only one she was able to figure out on her own was like Perseus, you're not the hero, and other than that, she came to them because she's like, we need to figure out what all of this means.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that was actually her motivation for inviting Percy on vacation to, was it San Martin's that they went to?
Hmm.
Um, she said, if you had gone with us on vacation, I was hoping you could help me figure out what's happening to me.
Yeah,
Um,
and Percy's just scared because of what happened to May Castellan. He doesn't
yes.
want the same thing to happen to her. So he is like telling, when she says she's going to go off and talk to Chiron, he keeps telling Chiron like, don't let her go too far. Like, please, for the love of God, like, don't let her go too far. And Chiron, of course, is like, everything will be fine. Like, I won't. I'll talk to her and make sure she understands, so she doesn't
Hmm.
do anything like that.
Yeah, the way that it's written, you can kind of tell that Chiron has like a visceral reaction to her saying
Yeah.
not to go too far, or yeah, because like it says his horse half of his body twitches, and so
Hmm.
it's like almost an instinctual like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Like, no, I can't do that. We can't let that happen again. Um,
Yeah.
and I think this part was when I can't remember if they say if she says it now about how he's not the hero.
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay.
it was um it was one of the ancient Greek things that she wrote out. Perseus, you are not the hero. And he's confused. He's like asking her, what does it mean? You came thousands of miles to tell me I'm not the hero. Not the hero of the prophecy, not the hero who defeats Kronos. What do you mean? And she doesn't
Mhm.
know. She just knows that for whatever reason she was compelled to write that sentence.
Mhm.
So Chiron shows up and Percy like does a quick introduction and yeah, he sends her off with Chiron so that they can figure it out together. And before Chiron leaves, he tells Percy to go to sleep. And this is a scene that you've shouted out a few times in talking about
Mhm.
Chiron. Um,
Mhm.
Percy fights back at first. He says, everybody keeps telling me to sleep. I don't need sleep. Chiron managed to smile. Have you looked at yourself recently, Percy? And Percy glances down at his clothes, which were scorched, burned, sliced, and tattered from my night of constant battles. So he's basically like, I don't think I can sleep. I don't want to sleep. But Chiron's like, you should.
Mhm.
Achilles, the hero who also had this power, was napping every time he wasn't on the battlefield. So go to sleep.
Yeah, Chiron just being his little dad in this world to make sure that he doesn't. I don't know. I was just thinking the other day about how it's been like 3 or 4 days since he's actually slept. Like,
Yeah.
he sleeps, but he like sleeps, passes out, and has horrible nightmares, and then wakes up a couple hours later. That's not exactly actual sleep. So he's a little bit out of it, like sleep deprived, and also dealing with
Hmm.
lots and lots and lots of stuff constantly. The one thing I wanted to say about Rachel saying that he's not the hero, like, we've talked about that before, that Percy wouldn't be the hero for the gods, and that is like the one of the many points that Rick is making in these books is that he's not. Every single book he compares him by showing somebody else being an asshole,
Hmm.
like the other old heroes, and then showing how Percy is not like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he wouldn't be the hero of the gods necessarily. He wouldn't be that person. But that also is like, what do you mean? Like, for him in this moment, I empathize a lot with him being like, after all of this stuff, just in this one book alone, think of everything that he's done since Charlie died, since Beckendorf
Yeah.
died. Just like back to back to back stuff that he's dealing with, without the amount of people that he should, and like almost everything going wrong at a certain point, and he's handling it as well as you possibly can. Like, people
Hmm.
are demanding him all these things, and he's 15, and he's doing as best as he can. And to hear after all of that, not even counting all the other things he's done in all the other books, just this one book alone, and for her to show him and be like, oh, you're not the hero, and it's like, what do you, I'm not good enough, I'm still not good enough
Hmm.
for the gods. And it's like, no. And it's harsh as fuck, but it's
Hmm.
just true. He's never good enough for the gods.
Well, yeah.
Even in the most recent book, like the one that just came out where he's graduating high school and stuff, Poseidon tells him he has a debt on his life for existing. And that is just, yeah, that's how it is when you have like really abusive people who are related to you, especially. That's what it's like. You can never do anything to
Yeah.
make them happy. You can never do anything to make them feel like you deserve to live. And it is like, yes, I'm glad that you're not the hero of the gods because you're a good person, and that's why you're not. But that in this moment right now, when he's trying to believe that they're going to win when everything is going wrong,
Hmm.
that's just a really harsh thing to have to learn, especially to know that Rachel
Yeah.
came all the way here just to tell you that. Like
Well,
one
and
of your
I took
friends
it a
came here
little,
just to tell you, and
yeah.
the way he's thinking is like you're here to tell me that I'm gonna fail or something.
The way I took it more was like you're not the hero the prophecy is mentioning, but that's because I already know that that's what it means, I think.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
doesn't know what it means. He's like, what do you mean I'm not, I'm somebody else is gonna do it, but I thought I'm gonna do it. Like Percy's like the posters we talked about that they came out from Sea of Monsters, his is they have on the top a different line for like their quest for every character. And his is a quest for destiny, and it's like Percy's always trying to figure out what the fuck he is doing
I was
in this
talking to
world.
somebody about this today. I feel like it's the canonical Leo thing of like the drama follows us. He's never been searching this out. It's always shit that happens to him.
Yeah, and he's trying to figure out like his place in this world that he's now in, and people keep expecting him to do all of these things because he's the son of one of the most powerful gods. And
Hmm.
so overall that's kind of his general thing in this world is trying to figure out, where do I fit in? Do I fit in at all? Like, do I have a place here, or like what am
Hmm.
I doing? And so being like the prophecy kid in a weird way gave him something that he felt like he could do, even if it means that he thinks he's going to be stabbed to death. But
Hmm.
still, he thinks it's something that he has like a purpose for.
Yeah.
And so for someone to show up and suddenly be like, that might not actually be your thing, it's like, well, then what is my thing?
Yeah,
Like, why am I
exactly.
doing all of this then?
Yeah, so he finds that out and then he does end up falling asleep and of course has a like prophetic kind of nightmare thing where he sees what Nico is doing. And Nico's
Hmm.
still in the underworld. Nico is trying to convince Hades to join the fight. He's like, "Look, Olympus is your family. I know you feel like an outcast, but you need to save your family." And Hades is pushing back of what has my family ever done for me? Why should I? And he's like, okay, well, like you can turn this around. You can prove them wrong. Like you could be the one who saves them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I will say, like, I feel like this happened so long ago, but I feel like this is like the internet way of talking about when you go no contact versus like real
Hmm.
life way, which is like our way of like the difference of Hades just being like, well, my family doesn't like me, so I'm just gonna sit here and let them all get murdered, I guess, and die, even though that's also gonna make me die too. And
Hmm.
Nico being like, what if you don't? Like, what if you don't do that? And you actually like help them out and prove to them like what you think that that you deserve to be there all this time and stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what that reminded me of just how people are like, well, if they don't help me, then I'm not going to help them, to like the level that it's like too much. Like they're like, you can think that like there's obvious times to believe that when people have actually done really horrifying things to you, but there's a different thing going on here with Hades, that
Hmm.
Hades is the one that inflicted most of this on them.
Yeah. And well, so Hades is also pushing back of you saw what they did to your mom. Like, why should I help them because of that? And he says, my mother understood about family. That's why she didn't want to leave us. You can't just abandon your family because they did something horrible. You've done horrible things to them too.
Yeah,
Um,
that's like the thing with him is he's like, "Oh, what about what they did to Maria? You literally cursed a innocent young girl because she told
yes.
you something you didn't want to hear that has killed probably dozens of people." Like,
Hmm.
yeah, Maria dying was sad because you actually cared about her. What about all the other people that you kill that you don't care about? Do you care
Yeah.
about any of those people? Or is it just about you, sir?
So the other good point that Nico makes, you can't just cut yourself off from the other gods. And Hades says, I've done very well at it for thousands of years. And Nico, shoots back. And has that made you feel any better? Has that curse on the Oracle helped you at all? Holding grudges is a fatal flaw. Bianca warned me about that, and she was right. And he tries to say that's a demigod thing, like I'm immortal, I can do what I want, I'm here forever. Like the consequences are forever, which is honestly more of a reason to let it go anyway. Like holding a
Hmm.
grudge forever sounds exhausting.
Yeah,
And
well,
I'm a big grudge holder,
yeah,
saying that.
I was gonna say I stopped because we both hold grudges, but
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's also just a thing with Hades that Nico is absolutely right. Like, what is, are you happy? Are you happy staying in the
Hmm.
underworld all the time, being a little angsty little bitch, thinking about how nobody likes you, but also
Yeah.
doing absolutely nothing about it? Like, there's all these different times where you could try, like do something,
Hmm.
anything, and you just don't want to do it. Like you're being horrible to your son. You didn't tell them that you cursed the
Oracle.
oracle. You didn't tell them that Nico and Bianca were hiding in a fucking hotel. You didn't tell them anything.
Yep.
You didn't tell them anything. And then you get upset that things happen outside of your controls because you don't tell them anything. People are gonna, especially in a family like this, people are gonna go do stuff. When they, especially if they only know a little bit of what's going on, they're gonna react. And if you don't actually open up your mouth and say words, how are they ever supposed to know anything? They're not gonna know anything because you haven't told them yet. God, he's so annoying. Why do people like him so much?
Yeah, and so let's see. You're just as much of an outcast as I am. Stop being angry about it and do something helpful for once. That's the only way they'll respect you. And I love that this whole scene, as Nico's saying this, you kind of know he's been saying this shit to himself,
Yeah, he's
because
like
this is,
literally he's
yeah,
parenting his like thousands-year-old father because this is what he figured out with like Percy's help in Battle of the Labyrinth of like I could stay an angsty little person and
hmm,
hiding in the underworld with McDonald's and stay angry at Percy and blame him for my sister dying, but why would I do that when him and the rest of camp are offering like real actual like friendship
yeah,
and he wants and help. And so Nico is like, getting that stuff together of like, no, I want to help these people. Like if you want to show that you're a part of the rest of the Olympus world after you casted yourself out basically for all this time, then you have to do something to show that you want to be a part of it again. You have to
yeah.
like you have to take a, you have to take a risk and actually put yourself out there if you want to show that you do. Usually when I mean, sometimes when you do that stuff, it hurts, but a lot of times when you do that stuff, it like works out okay.
Hmm.
But you have to like do it first, or else they're never going to know that you're even willing to help because
Yeah.
you haven't for all this time. You have to actually try. And this is like Nico being like, no, but I actually want to do this. I actually want to help and I want to try and
Hmm.
trying to like therapize him.
Yeah.
Hades.
And so it's funny because Demeter and Persephone are in the background of this argument, and at some point it gets so heated that Hades is like holding up a fireball and is
And they're like,
threatening
calm down.
Nico with it. Demeter's like, please do it, shut this kid up. And Persephone's like, you know what? I'm kind of bored. Maybe we should go fight. I
You're
kind of
like,
love
this
it.
is stupid. Let's just go get involved.
Yeah, and then his dream switches and he sees what the Titan army is doing. They're currently outside of the United Nations, which is a mile away from them, so they're closing in, as I said. If you look at this again on a map, there's water to the right of them, and the Empire State Building is a few blocks to the like left, and it's just they are closing in for sure. Now, Kronos says something, and I thought I want to backpedal a lot because we've talked a bit about the golden age of man before, but I want to read it because it's not even that long. But one of the things that happens is because they're in the United Nations, Kronos is like, I hate this place. As if mankind could ever unite. Remind me to tear this building out. Ugh. Remind me to tear this building down after we destroy Olympus. And so here's what the description of the Golden Age is. It's from Hesiod's Works and Days. And this was a poem, basically him telling his brother stop being lazy and work harder. But let's see. So The race of men that the immortals who dwell on Olympus made first of all was gold. They were in the time of Cronos when he was king in heaven, and they lived like gods, with carefree heart, remote from toil and misery. Wretched old age did not affect them either, but with hands and feet ever unchanged, they enjoyed themselves in feasting beyond all ills, and they died as if overcome by sleep. All good things were theirs, and the grain giving soil bore its fruits of its own accord in unstilled plenty, while they had at their leisure harvested their fields in contentment amid abundance. Since the earth covered that up that race, they have been divine spirits by great Zeus's design, good spirits on the face of earth, watchers over mortal men, bestowers of wealth. Such is the knightly honor that they received. So basically, the golden age is supposed to be, there's no getting older, there's no being hungry, you don't have to work for your food. Um, Basically, dying is as simple as falling asleep. So think of how people describe modern day heaven, and that's what the golden age is supposed to be, which, like, for Kronos to be like, oh, these humans shouldn't be getting along, like, screw them, that is not golden age. This is how you know that he has been manipulating the demigods that he's using by saying, I'm going to bring you back to this state where you get to be children forever and be
Hmm.
happy and carefree and not have to do anything.
Yeah, and I also think that that writing about the Golden Age is also just propaganda because that honestly reminds me so much of things in just general history where people are like, oh, everything was great and wonderful, and bunnies floated by on like giant
Yes.
little clouds with candy on them, and everything was perfect until like usually the brown people showed up. And so, like,
Yeah.
that's honestly what it that's what it reminds me of people writing it like that as if everything was perfect and great when they were in charge. And I'm like, I don't think that's accurate. And like
Yeah.
this is like showing like Rick agrees with that assessment that no, Kronos did not have like this magical wonderful place where everyone was happy and everyone's need was met, and he was not like the king of socialism by giving everybody everything they needed. He probably just, killed everybody who said anything mean to him.
Or
And
kept humanity in such blind ignorance that they wouldn't have known the difference.
yeah, it's like if they'd never known anything but like whatever suffering he decided to inflict on them, they wouldn't know that they didn't have the capabilities of knowing that that it used to be better
Hmm.
kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah, but the idea is there's 5 generations. As each generation goes, the people become more violent and lawless until Zeus is finally like, let me flood the world, which is also like when my mom was like, oh, you're gonna go to this religious college and become more Christian. This is like one of the stories that makes me laugh because Pyrrha and Deucalion, being the OG, like Noah's Ark, was one of those ones where it's like, oh, so they just plagiarized that story.
yep, pretty much.
Yeah, so but I wanted to read that because it's important now as we're closing in on certain demigods on the Titan side
Hmm.
of what exactly they were promised to begin with. Like what is it that they actually think they're fighting for, and why do they think it's worth so many lives? I mean, personally, if I was trying to make sure that we had this golden race of people, I wouldn't want to kill my friends and family, but that's just me.
Obviously, they feel differently. Um,
Yes.
I also think this part is this stuff with the Titans is on the in these chapters overall.
Hmm.
It just shows how they did not think they were going to lose. And that's
Yes.
just one of those things when people talk about like the storyline of Luke. That
Hmm.
bitch was absolutely shocked that he lost.
Yes.
He did not think he was going to lose. Why would you think reading this stuff that they were going to lose? You would
Yeah.
not think that they were going to lose. Like these kids did not go into this expecting to win, ever expecting anything. They were like hoping beyond hope that something would. But especially with everything that's going on right now, nobody would ever think that they were going to succeed. They did not think that at all. He was not like secretly planning their demise or something. He was like thinking that they were going to win, like what it looks like is going to happen until they suddenly don't.
Yeah.
But it's not because you would never think at this point in the story that they ever had a chance.
Yeah. So Prometheus is kind of messing with Kronos in this dream. So He makes a joke about, shall we tear down the stables in Central Park? I know horses can annoy you because Chiron is his son, and he's basically like, I'm gonna get Chiron. Don't even worry about him. And Prometheus is like, hmm, like, because he calls Chiron a weakling, so he's like, that weakling destroyed an entire legion of telekines with his arrows. So Prometheus stays playing both sides, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what Rick's trying to get at with his
Mm-hmm.
characterization here. Let's see. Ethan Nakamura is also present in this dream too. Um,
And
it's
he's
time to
shitting
unleash
himself.
the Draken, Nakamura. You will do this. And he's like, okay, at sunset, because they've been fighting at nighttime for the most part. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, they're recouping right now, so let's do it now. And
Oh yeah, and he says something about how it's one that they can never defeat.
yes,
Is
besides,
this
we
the
know this
part
is a
when
dragon they
like
cannot
when he
beat.
says something about his body?
Yeah, so Ethan says, hold on, but my lord, your regeneration. Kronos pointed at Ethan and the demigod froze. Does it seem, Kronos hissed, that I need to regenerate? Ethan didn't respond. Kind of hard to do when you're immobilized in time. Kronos snapped his fingers and Ethan collapsed. Soon, the Titan Todd growled. This form will be unnecessary. I will not rest with victory so close. Now go. So yeah, he's denying himself the this form will be unnecessary. I will not rest with victory so close. Now go. So yeah, he's denying himself the rest that he would need in order for we found out, like that Luke's mortal body is going to burn up, and that's going to be Kronos' true form, and it's going to be so
Mm-hmm.
powerful, even being in his presence is going to melt the demigods. So he's basically denying himself what we assume would be the rest that he needs to fully achieve that.
Mm-hmm. Is this the part when he yells something that Luke would say instead of him, but he says it?
Um,
I can't remember if
yeah,
that's now or later.
not it's later. It's when they're actually in battle.
Okay,
Um,
because that's interesting.
but yeah,
Um,
Prometheus does kind of like poke at Luke too because he says, "I wonder if your mortal host is influencing you, weakening your judgment." Which,
mm-hmm.
like, of course, is gonna make Kronos mad. It just kind of made me laugh that he was that bold.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Anyways, so Prometheus and Kronos doing this back and forth. Kronos says, are your loyalties divided? Perhaps you miss your old friends, the gods. Would you like to join them? And Prometheus says, I misspoke. Your orders will be carried out. And he tells the troops to prepare for battle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Percy wakes up because the sound of the Dracon waking is so loud that he hears it both in the dream and then when he wakes up, he's still hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
And he wakes up with Grover next to him. Um, so, just to account where they are, because this is where we started the next paragraph. The Hephaestus cabin was out of Greek fire. The Apollo cabin and the hunters were scrounging for arrows. Most of us had already ingested so much ambrosia and nectar we didn't dare take any more. We had 16 campers, 15 hunters, and half a dozen satyrs in fighting shape. The rest had taken refuge on Olympus. The party ponies tried to form ranks, but they staggered and giggled, and they all smelled like root beer. So, to count up the campers, because I did the math, it's 37 campers left that are in fighting shape.
Yeah.
37, and they have a whole ass army of monsters coming towards them,
Yeah, and
including that
just
Dracon.
pure people from Camp Half Blood, not counting the hunters. There was 40 of them, and now only 16 of them can fight.
Yes.
And so, that's not good.
Yeah, it's not. And but this is the point where Chiron and Rachel come back and they figured things out. I'm sure she showed him some drawings and some writing and stuff, and they find out that that is the Lydian dragon. So there was two different Lydian dragon stories that I found. One was a hero that was the son of Gaia named Damocin, and he bashed it with a tree, but after he did so, a lady dragon came and gave it an herb and revived it. Then there's a Heracles story, and they don't go into detail how he killed it, but I would assume if the first guy bashed it with a tree and Heracles' main weapon is a club, he probably also just bonked it to death.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. And then the reason that it is an impossible one, and this is part of the prophetic thing that Rachel figures out, is it'll only be killed by a child of Ares, which
Yeah.
they don't have any on their battlefield right now. They're all back
No.
at camp because of Clarice's tantrum.
No. And that's when it's like, okay, they're
Yeah.
screwed.
So, Percy remembers the spy in this moment, which is why he says that he thinks Kronos knows they can't beat it. Kronos would
Hmm.
know that the Ares cabin isn't with them. He intentionally picked a monster we can't kill. And so, they mentioned Blackjack is on his way, but Selena was also there before that. So if she wasn't able to convince Clarice, I'm not sure it's going to happen.
Hmm.
So they go out to go fight the Drakon. Now, this is one of those weird ones. This is why you can't really, I don't know, like you can interchange it with dragon, and I'm sure people have in a lot of their translations. But Drakon is like a very general term for serpentine things. And so that's why I think Rick made this distinction of they're several millennial older than dragons, much larger. Um, most don't have wings, most don't breathe fire, though some do. Um, and I mean, the pictures of them on vase paintings, I feel like I've seen a couple with wings, but um, it's just giant steak. That's what you're supposed to think of. Now, this particular one is 200 feet long, and I looked up what is something that we could compare that to. That's three-fourths the length of a standard American football field. So
Yeah.
basically, almost the whole field. And
Yeah.
he says it is as thick as a school bus. So
And I think they say something like when it started screaming, like like an entire skyscraper of windows just like exploded from how loud it is, just
yeah,
to show how powerful even that is on it.
and its
That's
eyes
just.
just like its eyes can literally petrify people, which is a recognition. But
Mhm.
I think it comes from, there was a nymph in one of the stories about it that got so scared she just like she freaked out. But it
Mhm.
wasn't necessarily like written in a way where you think the eyes were paralyzing her.
Mhm.
Yeah. So at this point, Percy actually falters a little bit because he knows he doesn't have many troops, and he's like, "I'll take the Draken," but it's like squeaky at first. Then he has to like compose himself and be like, "I'll take the Draken."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then ask Annabeth, "Are you with me?" Annabeth is, of course, and then Miss O'Leary also shows up, smelling suspiciously of pepperoni pizza. I love that detail that she was off looting before this, no big
Mhm.
deal.
She got hungry.
Yep. Um, so yeah, even though Miss O'Leary we know is super huge, though she's still no match for this. It says next to the Dracon, Miss O'Leary looked like a child's night-night doll. She's like clawing and biting at it, and because its scales are really, really tough, it's not doing anything. So essentially,
Mhm.
she's only really able to distract it. Um, and Percy also tries distracting it for a while. He had Annabeth sneak up on it in like wearing her baseball cap so she's invisible. And eventually she gets to the point where she is able to climb on top of it and put her knife into a chink in his armor. Percy gets it in one of its eyes, so it literally only has one eye and it's stunned for a second. Um, but yeah, it's like a back to back. Percy saves Annabeth after it starts flailing when she stabs it, and then Annabeth saves Percy when it starts
Mhm.
like trying to bite him.
Mhm.
Um, let's see, and then all of a sudden, when Percy is starting to feel like there's no hope left, he hears a female voice yell "Ares," and he sees the cabin or the chariot charge into battle. Each flew a red banner with a symbol of a wild boar's head. Each was pulled by a team of skeletal horses with manes of fire. A total of 30 fresh warriors, armor gleaming and eyes full of hate, lowered their lances as one, making bristling wall of death. And so Annabeth's like, wait, how did Rachel know? How did she know this was going to happen? Priscilla's like,
Mhm.
it's,
Mhm.
yeah. So let's see. Clarice in this battle is like constantly telling, ordering them closer. She's getting up close to the dragon and like super fighting it. It looks like it's going really well because these fighters are the ones that have literally trained so hard for this. This is their moment. They've been waiting for it, so they're in it. And
Mm-hmm.
Percy notices when he gets closer that like she's about to be in a really like dangerous situation, but he's trying to like cheer her on because at first him and Annabeth are stunned, like, and he's watching all of this. So he's screaming at her, "You can do it! A child of Ares is destined to kill it," thinking this is gonna make Clarice a little bit happy. And so she shouts Ares again. He notices it's a strangely shrill voice, but he figures it's just, battle. She's just nervous. But then he says, "No, wait." And the monster looks down at her and spits poison directly in her face. So a bunch of people go to protect her in that moment. Um, I missed the part. Wait, where was it? The eyes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when he notices up close the armor that she's wearing, her eyes were blue, and Clarice does not have blue eyes. Um,
No.
and so at this point, we have a fallen soldier with like poison in her face, who Percy was starting to get the like feeling something's not right here, something's not right about this picture, and then she gets taken out, basically in a way where it seems like there's no coming back from this injury.
Mm-hmm.
Then all of a sudden, um, at the edge of his vision, I saw a chariot land on Fifth Avenue. When someone came toward us, a girl's voice, shaken with grief, cried, "No, curse you, why?" I glanced over, but what I saw made no sense. Clarice was lying on the ground where she'd fallen, her armor smoked with poison. Annabeth and the Ares campers were trying to unfasten her helmet, and kneeling next to them, her face splotchy with tears, was a girl in camp clothes. It was Clarice. Um, so Clarice just fully comes in her camp clothes, no armor, no weapons, because, I mean, Selena, who it turns out to be, took them.
Mm-hmm.
And the dragon, meanwhile, is in the background still trying to fight them while she's having her little, like, no, curse you moments. Um, and so she's like, "You know what? You want death? I'll give you death." And she just, like, grabs a sword off of one of her fallen brothers and goes and bosses it up, stabs it in the other eye so hard. Or no, she takes her spear from Selena because the electricity from her spear, when she stabs it in the eye so hard, it shoots through the entire dragon. And the rest of us stared at Clarice in awe. I had never seen anyone take down such a huge monster single handedly, but Clarice didn't seem to care. She ran back to the wounded girl who'd stolen her armor. Um, and then this is where they finally figure out that it's Selena. And something's about to happen. Rachel's words rang in my ears, a trick that ends in death. So this was another line of the prophecy come true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, chapter 17, we open with this kind of moment between Selena and Clarice before Selena finally dies. And so Clarice says to her, "You stole my armor. You waited until Chris and I went on patrol. You stole my armor and pretended to be me. And none of you noticed," she says to her brothers. And Selena's like, "Don't blame them. They all just really wanted to fight.
Yeah, they
Like,
were
they wanted to
desperate.
believe it."
They
Um,
desperately just wanted to help.
yeah, and we've talked about this before that this is a Patrocles and Achilles adaptation. And it's done in a way that he took out because Achilles does tell Patroclus like, "Go ahead, take my armor. It's fine. Like just
Mm-hmm.
come back. Don't get hurt."
Mm-hmm.
Which it doesn't make sense for Clarice as a character as much as it does for Achilles to do that.
Yeah.
So her having to be tricked because she's extremely stubborn makes a lot more sense. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that Selena just did this on her own, happened to find the right people to talk to that wanted to go to battle so bad they looked past the fact that this person was probably much smaller and didn't look right in the armor.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to imagine her face was probably pretty covered still.
Yeah. And you have to
Yeah.
think about too, like the how they were just giving like the numbers of people that there
Hmm.
were 16 demigods left. There was 40 of them in all, and there is 30 people in the Ares cabin.
Yeah.
30. 30 people, all with flying chariots, a bunch of flying chariots who are all their best fighters. There could
Hmm.
have been 70 of them. How
Yeah.
many people would still be alive right now if there was 70 of them with an entire cabin of the best fighters that could go to every single place they were fighting instead of kids just trying to scrape stuff together because they don't have the best people there with them?
Yeah. So as Clarice is like telling her, "Oh my gosh, you're so stupid. Like, why would you do this?" She she says, "It was all my fault. The Jack and Charlie's death, camp endangered." "Stop it," Clarice said. "That's not true." And Selena opens her hand and she has the bracelet they've been looking for, the one that the spy would have with the Scythe
Mm-hmm.
charm. Um, so what she says, before I liked Charlie, Luke was nice to me. He was so charming, handsome. Later, I wanted to stop helping him, but he threatened to tell. He promised I was saving lives. Fewer people would get hurt. He told me he wouldn't hurt Charlie. He lied to me. And Annabeth has a very visceral reaction to this. Percy
Mm-hmm.
is like looking over at her, and she goes pale white. She looks like somebody had just yanked the world out from under her feet, is what Percy says. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so Clarice goes on full like Rambo killer mode after this. She's on a conquest. Um, but before she leaves, the thing that she asserts is she was a hero. Understand? A hero. And nobody really argues this point. And later, when it comes up, when someone asks Percy, like, "Hey, I heard," and he's like, "She was a hero. That's it."
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I
will
kind of
say,
love, yeah.
just to say it, that that kind of thing does come up with somebody in The Lost Hero,
Hmm.
that I thought was really good in that book the first time for Rick to put in because
Yeah.
people would have different feelings about that, because that would be really hard. There's like 5 million things to say about what just happened.
Yes.
So I'm trying to like organize what to say first in my mind. I guess the first thing I will say is before this scene happens and they reveal that it's Selena, I like I said before when I read the books for the first time, I thought it was Annabeth, because she was the only
Hmm.
one that I knew that was like super close to Luke still that kept defending him. But I will say that right before this part when they're talking about like, oh, I want to find the the mole and like hurt them and stuff, like when Thalia's saying that, she says he.
Hmm.
And most of the time when the other characters are thinking, especially in this book, who the spy is, they all usually say he because they just assume that it's a guy.
Hmm.
And so the first thing I wanted to point out is how great of a decision it is that Rick made when he was writing this book, that they, instead of making it a guy, they made it a girl. They
Hmm.
made it a young girl. And that is very different from what most people would assume. Most people would assume somebody was doing this stuff to like get back or move ahead. It is a very different idea to make the mole be Selena, a girl who had a crush on Luke, who
Hmm.
used that to every single device that he possibly could. Like her saying that, oh, before I liked Charlie, Luke was nice to me, is disgusting.
Yeah.
And like I just need to point out that sometimes people will say like, "Oh, Rick Riordan like didn't realize how old he made Luke." That is absolutely a lie. He knows what he is doing. You
Hmm.
do not write her saying these exact lines if you are not writing a storyline about a male character who uses the fact that he is attractive to terrorize people.
Hmm.
Like that is something that happens with Luke in general. Like the
Yeah.
one of the nymphs or whatever in Battle of the Labyrinth talks about how she saw Luke when he was still at camp trying to find the entrance to the labyrinth, and she didn't think he was doing anything bad because he's good looking.
Hmm.
Like this is a part of his archetype of his character, that he is good looking. And
Hmm.
so he uses that as a way to hurt people and control people because he knows he can use it in that way to get what he wants. Thank you for showing in the most brutal way possible because this is how brutal it is.
Yeah.
what it's like to be groomed by an older man.
Yep.
This honestly is not that much of an exaggeration of what it feels like. It does feel like somebody spit poison in your face and your helmet melted to your head.
Hmm.
It honestly does feel like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just to start off, I'm very thankful that they, out of every way that this storyline could have gone, I seriously doubt there was anybody who was reading these books the first time besides somebody overly paranoid like me who thought that the mole was even going to be a girl,
Yeah.
much less that the mole was going to be Selena. I seriously doubt that anyone ever thought that. And so it'll be interesting to see how they do this on the show for the kids that haven't read the books
Hmm.
and see like what they think and how they show that and how overly like almost like devastating it would be to see their honest reaction to it for the first time again because so many people know that she is it that I feel like people like forget how surprising it is that she is the one in this position because it makes everything that she does like is forced to do even worse than normal. And the thing that I know is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion, but I don't care. I hope that Clarice is haunted by Selena every single day for the rest of her life.
Because she didn't fight.
She betrayed her. Why do people romanticize this friendship? She betrayed her. She absolutely betrayed her by not helping. It is
Hmm.
already unconscionable that she knows that these kids that they go to camp with are dying. She
Hmm.
can literally like hear them dying in battle from camp. People show her supposed best friend that she cares so much about shows up at camp and begs her begs her to get involved saying my boyfriend is dead
Hmm.
and I am begging you to help them so everyone else doesn't die. And like Percy keeps commenting about how horrible Selena looks, about how she's like basically suicidal and how nobody knows how every time he sees her, she looks worse and worse and worse. And everybody knows that. And everyone feels really bad seeing her suffer this way. And the closest person she has, she goes to them and asks them for help. And she says, no,
Hmm.
I won't help you because I think that I deserve to get all the rewards in battle exactly like the gods treat everybody else. Like, there's a very obvious one of the things with Clarice and Selena that I always wondered when I was going to read this again was people assume that, like, well, because this is a Patrocles Achilles parallel, that they have to be romantic. And that to me is lacking a lot of, like, analysis and nuance because it's like just because the characters are playing this part and some people see that relationship as romantic, people generally assume that it was in some way. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean that the audience or the author thinks that that relationship is a good thing. Just
Yeah.
because a relationship is queer does not mean it's a good one.
Yeah.
And so you have to look at like what Rick is actually trying to say in the story and the way that it happens within the context of the story before you can be sure or not like what he's really saying. I understand now after reading this again why Rick said like no, it wasn't my intention to make that relationship romantic because I generally am like flummoxed about why people saw this happen and is like, yeah, I want that to be romantic. And I want the idea to be that Clarice is like sad and thinking about Selena forever. She should. Every single day of her life. She
Hmm.
should think about how Selena came to her and asked for help when she was at the lowest moment she could possibly ever be, and she told her no. Like,
Yeah.
and I say this as somebody who actually went through this. I walked around my life in 2018 and 2019 horribly depressed. Like, it was honestly a miracle that I was still alive and somehow maintained aliveness during those 2 years, most of it. Like, in the very end of 2019, like the last month of that year was the first, like, I went to a therapy program from September to like right before Christmas, and my therapist that I saw there said that he did not see me smile one time until the middle of December. And I
Wow.
was there every single day. I was never happy about anything. I didn't think there was a point to anything. I slept 4 hours a night for 2 years basically, and was always tired, felt there was no point to my life, and nothing mattered anymore, was never happy about anything. And I had friends that I trusted a lot back then. And I told them when all this stuff first started, I knew that I couldn't handle all this stuff on my own.
Yeah.
And I straight up to their face, like, told them, like, I'm going to need help. Like, you're going to have to, like, come over and get me out of my apartment. Like, I used to work on the weekends in 2019 because I was afraid that I was going to hurt myself if I was alone in my apartment for 2 days in a row without me realizing it. Like, people don't realize that's what a lot of people who feel like that do. You don't want to hurt yourself, but you're almost like afraid of what you're going to do when you're not really aware of it because you're so tired and exhausted all the time from everything that you don't even realize what you're doing a lot of the time. I used to just work so that I wasn't home by myself because I honestly didn't trust what I would do. There was one friend that would come by and like we would run errands or stuff together on the weekends and just do random things. But the other two friends just left me. And they were the friends that I had known. One of them I had known since I was 9 years old. The other one I knew since I was a freshman in high school. And this happened when I was like 35. We had been friends for 20 years, at least 20 years. And I straight up told them, I need help. I literally told them, I am not going to survive this if you don't help me. And they didn't help me. And I asked them for help many times over those 2 years until they kept not helping me that I finally just gave up and stopped talking to them. And we like that's why that friendship with them ended for good in 2020 because by that point I didn't think that I could survive without any friends. And by that point I was like, well, these friends have hurt me so much that I don't care anymore. And at that point I was like I could handle not having any friends. Until that point I honestly couldn't because they were what like made me want to stay alive from like day to day. So like I know exactly how this feels. Like that level of betrayal is so intense of like you say you're the closest friend that I have and I'm like at the lowest a human being can possibly be while still being alive. And I come to you and I ask you for help. You know how much this means to me and you tell me no. You
Yeah.
don't help me because of your own selfish desires. Like, yeah, Clarice should be haunted by this every day for the rest of her life. That was a toxic friendship. Like Selena did so much to help her with stuff with Chris and other things, and she just slapped her in the face by not helping her at all when she was at the lowest that she possibly ever be.
Well, not helping her beyond what her stubbornness would. Like, because, yeah, she would, like, comfort her and, like, listen to her cry and stuff, but she didn't actually do something that she was very capable of doing about it. And that was
Yeah.
100% fueled by that stubborn, I need to be right.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
it's like if you put like your own needs over your friends, then you don't actually care about them that much. You just
Mhm.
don't because you're still putting yourself first. And I know that most people talk about this stuff as if, oh, like, oh, Clarice is going to have this amazing emotional moment. And like, no matter what, during that part, she's obviously going to be upset. But I am never going to look at that as like, oh, this is like a love that's lost or, oh, she's so upset because she loved Selena so much. If she did, she was absolutely horrible to her and never showed that she actually did when she was alive. It's one of those things of, oh, you're going to be good for her and use her as a reason to go on a rampage after she's dead. Why didn't you just help her when she was alive? You wouldn't have to do this ego stroking shit of acting like a big boss person and going on these huge battles if you just helped her when she was still alive.
Well, what I will say is, I think what Clarice becomes after this is everything that people that claim that there's a dark Percy want dark Percy to be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, she snaps into dark Clarice.
And that
And
that's
yeah,
that's one of the other things that I was trying to say about with how people talk about the Clarice Selena thing. They like I said, they assume that it because it's Patrocles Achilles that is supposed to be romantic. This
Mhm.
book series does not like Achilles.
Mhm.
There is nothing in this book so far that gives you the idea that Rick Riordan thinks that you should be like Achilles, that you should like him at all, that you
Mhm.
should think that he's a good person. Yeah, he said something nice once to Percy when he was, doing the Achilles curse. But the entire storyline that Clarice is doing in this book is showing the antithesis of what Percy is, to show how he is different from all the other heroes that people have known. She is
Yeah.
selfish. She thinks that she should get the rewards from a battle because she was in charge. Could you ever imagine Percy going up to one of these kids and being like, I deserve to get this because I'm actually the one in charge of everybody? He, like, his entire body would explode before he
Yeah.
would ever do something like that. But she is doing that stuff of putting her, thinking that she has the right to get everything from a battle because she was in charge, which is what the heroes of the past and also the gods treat demigods like. So just doing the same stuff again. She
Mhm.
is being overly stubborn. She is watching everybody die and not getting involved just because she doesn't think that she has to, basically, because she's angry about her pride and thinking that her pride is more important than literally anything else alive,
Yeah.
anything else, including Selena being alive. Her pride is more important than that, even. And so, nothing about her storyline in this book of watching her let down every single person who cares about her. Everyone. Everyone at camp is let down by her. Percy's let down by her. Annabeth is. Selena definitely is. Everyone is let down by her in this book. And she is playing the role of Achilles. This is not a book that is like wanting you to be like that. This is not a book that is going to put the Achilles Patrocles thing in like a light as like something to idolize or a good relationship, because he doesn't see Achilles as a good person. And that's
Yeah.
like very evident during this part. Like, it's so weird to me how fandom has like changed, twisted this stuff around to try to make it like a romantic story. Selena shouldn't even be friends with Clarice. Like, she's not a good friend to her, much less something else. When was like in and it's also just like crazy to me to imagine that while Selena is being groomed by Luke and then trapped in that absolute hellscape, that and also has Charlie, that she would have the time to have like a secret relationship with anybody else,
Yeah.
anyone. And it's just like, I don't know why she would do that considering everything else that's going on with her anyway. But it's just the overall story of the two of them is you're supposed to be horribly sad, obviously, that this happened to Selena, but you're not supposed to. They don't give you anything in the actual book to make you think that you're supposed to want them to like be together.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure that the only reason people think that is because they think that anything that compares Achilles and Patrocles means it's supposed to be romantic. But Rick quite literally told you that that's not true, and that's also just not true when you read the story.
Yeah.
There's like nothing in it that gives you the idea that they should be. And so and it also, to me, feels, I don't know how to put this. It feels especially I don't know the right word. It feels bad, really bad to me, that the thing that people take out of this like death of Selena and how she died and what she went through the last couple years of her life is trying to shove in a romance with her, with another character that isn't really like canon. It's just kind of things that you maybe can put together in the background or whatever, instead of focusing on what Luke did to her.
Yeah.
Like, out of everything about her character, the thing that people focus on the most is if she had a relationship with Clarice. I don't care.
Mhm.
What about Luke? What about what Luke did to her? What about what she went through with Luke? That is what matters. And people instead are so focused on whether she gets together with Clarice or not, that that's the only thing they ever talk about when it comes to her character.
I mean, I'll give a pass to the people at the time this was written that we didn't have a lot of good queer romances in
Mm-hmm.
media, and so a lot of times we had to shoehorn them in with fan fiction. But yeah, that's, I mean, besides that, I would have to wonder if her next actions are fueled by a little bit of that guilt, you know, a little bit of that, like, I should have been in this sooner, so
Yeah,
I'm gonna take it out on everybody else.
that's what I assume because just because of who I am as a person, I have to like talk about like what like Selena actually went through because it does
Hmm.
bother me how most of what people know of her character is talking about her romances, even with Charlie.
Yeah.
But there is so much more. And also, one thing I will say with the Clarice and Selena thing is that I've always said this is that if they're going to do that on the show, they have to find a way for that to happen without it taking away from her relationship with Charlie
Hmm.
because he sacrifices himself at the beginning of this book and starts all of this stuff that happens with all of these kids doing all of these things, including this moment with her.
Yeah.
And so you can't lessen that, but particularly reading it now and reading that her last words are saying that she's seen Charlie when
Hmm.
she's dying. Like that's something that happened when people die. Is a lot of times when people are dying, they see like their loved ones that have already died and they like reach out to them almost like they're trying to talk to them or something, and that's when people die. And so she's seen Charlie, and that's how you know that she's dying. And she's like happy about that. Like Charlie tells Nico that he's waiting for her. How do
Yeah.
you include that she was actually in love with somebody else the entire time without making just like lessening those that relationship that has to be important in this book because it is the basis of everything that happens going forward. Like that you can't do that. You just you I don't know how they could do that without destroying who Charlie is as a character, and you can't destroy him because he's one of the biggest things in this book with how him dying sets everything in motion and makes all these different things happen the way that they do. And
Hmm.
so just that alone, I don't know, but I just get bothered that most of the time when Selena gets brought up is talking about her relationships one way or another. And I'm like, there's a lot that she just told you about
Hmm.
that she went through. And I feel like people skate over it because I don't think that people would like Luke
Yeah.
if they actually talked about it. And maybe people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to actually think about it. But this is quite literally my life. And so I think about it anyway, so I'll talk about it. Like the older man that did this to me was my father, and so I
Hmm.
know exactly what this is like. And so just the one line that Selena says from the very beginning of, "Oh, I got Luke would talk to me before I liked Charlie." Like she is comparing how she felt about her boyfriend that actually cared about her and
Hmm.
loved her to somebody like Luke. She thinks that everything is her fault. And even like she says that everything is her fault and that this is why she just did it because she's like, I have to do something
Hmm.
to make up for everything that's happened because she just didn't have anybody to she felt like she could tell like the truth about during all that time. But just like the little lines she says, like the this stuff where she says that Luke told her that she was helping.
Hmm.
And earlier in the book, when she said, like, I wish that I was better at camp and at fighting and stuff, because maybe then I could have done more. Like, she's saying, like, I wish I could have fought better, fought him off, fought Luke, so I didn't have to, so he wouldn't have even been able to convince me that I
Hmm.
was helping by talking to him and thinking that if I talked to him, he would be nicer. But I just need to like spell this out for people that Luke knows about everything that's going on at camp when he basically as soon as he leaves in the Lightning Thief. And
Hmm.
so in Sea of Monsters he knows about everything going on because of Selena telling him things from that early on. Selena in that book is like 13
Hmm.
and she's like 13 or 14 at the oldest and he is 20.
Yeah.
And I just want to imagine Luke at camp and knowing that Selena has a crush on him and going up to this young girl who's in like middle school when he's like 19, 20 years old and coming up to her and flirting, but not really because he's an adult and she's a child with her, and saying what she would want him to hear, or like what she would want to hear from him, and getting her to agree to help him with this stuff, and telling her like, oh, if you help me, you'll be helping because I won't hurt as many of our friends if you tell me what's going on. And then as more time goes on, and she sees people getting hurt and she sees people dying, and she realizes slowly that Luke isn't like doing the things that he said he would. He then is now telling her like, oh, but if you tell me what what you've been doing, or if you don't want to help me anymore, I'll tell everybody what you've been doing this whole time.
Hmm.
And I cannot state enough, this is literally what happens when people groom children.
Yes.
Like, Luke is a little bit younger, maybe, but this is literally the exact steps of what happens when people groom children. Like,
Hmm.
what I, one thing about my own memories with my dad is that he is like silent in all of them, which probably shows like how traumatic he was when he talked. That in all of the memories I have, he's just silent. He was never silent, but he is silent in them because I just like blocked out what he said to me. But some of the things he said to me has come back when I've been doing therapy things, and he said things like that to me. I am still afraid the police are after me.
Jeez.
Why? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I was afraid then, and there's still a part of my brain that won't let go of the idea that the police are going to throw me in jail for something, because he made me feel like it was my fault. Like, um it's like the way that Selena phrases things is the extremely distorted way that when you go through that, as especially when it starts when you're a kid, that is how you see things in such a distorted way. And this is why I get frustrated when people say, like, when they are talking to grooming victims, like, oh, just tell them to get out or whatever. Like, I sometimes wonder every day, like, how many times somebody who's being groomed says something to somebody about how they are, but they don't realize it.
Hmm.
I know, like, Becky said something to us about that, which is something that I try not to think about. Like, the thing that she said to us specifically, it's on our public profile, so anyone can see it. But she said that she thought that she was telling a doctor about things that were going on in her life for 10 years.
Hmm.
And that then after 10 years, the doctor said and she said the way she phrased it was, I thought I was being explicit about it. And then suddenly the doctor was like shocked and was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying? And she said like that I was not having like an epiphany moment like she was. And it
Hmm.
was like, how could you not? That happens so much where we say things, but because the way that we talk about them is so far away from like what is actually happening, the because it's what we've been told how
Yeah.
this stuff is happening and stuff, that it comes out and people don't realize what you're actually saying. Like, that kind of stuff happened with me all the time with so many people. I would say things and they wouldn't react because they didn't understand what I was really saying. But when it's going on with you, that makes you think like, oh yeah, it is not that big of a deal because they didn't react. And
Hmm.
so obviously I'm being over dramatic by thinking that it's worse because I just said something and they don't get it and they never understood what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
But okay, like the best example I have of that to like try to explain how your brain can just like make you think that things are true that aren't, like with Selena saying, comparing like Luke being interested in her like she would like any other boyfriend,
Hmm.
when Luke, like not only older, but doing it so that he can blame her
Yeah.
for everyone that he kills and making her feel guilty for it. When he I made a post the other day just being like, yesterday, just being like, people say that Luke's plan was worth it. I'm like, why then was the most important part of his plan telling a 13-year-old girl that she was actually the one responsible for everything that he was doing?
Oh my gosh.
If
Yeah.
his plan was so perfect, If he was doing what needed to be done, if Luke was doing everything that you needed to do, then why does his plan hinge on terrorizing and traumatizing Selena until he rips her soul out of her body and then leaves her to die?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the person that's supposed to bring back the golden age? That's the person that's supposed to be like the one saving everybody at camp? He's supposed to be everybody's hero? Somebody who
Apparently.
will do that to a literal child? Because
Yeah.
it's easier to get him what his plan wouldn't have worked if Selena wasn't there telling him things. He needed her, and she had no idea how much she had no idea how much power she actually had, because that's what happens. We never realize how much power we actually have if anyone would actually listen to a word we ever had to say,
Mm-hmm.
which they don't. I thought that everything was my fault. I thought that my dad not being happy was my fault. I thought that every bad thing that was going on, which was a lot at the time with my family, I thought that it was all my fault.
Mm-hmm.
I thought everything was my fault, and I was 12. I was 12. And that's what I thought. That's why I still have a hard time believing that people like me, because those sort of things, it's hard to like completely let them go, especially when the person that did that is your father. It's hard to like completely just the way that they like warp your mind, that I thought that I was doing something wrong, that the things that he was doing to me was my fault. And like similar to when Selena says that was that Luke told her like, oh, if you want to if you want to stop, I'm going to tell everybody else what you're doing. As if that wouldn't make immediately everybody like just want to help her. Like, yeah, you can understand maybe some people might be upset, but most people would react polar opposite to that. They would want to help her, and they would be absolutely like horrified beyond belief by what he was doing. He would
Yeah.
never tell anybody what he was doing. Never. Because they would never want to set foot near him after if they found out that he was using and abusing this young girl, and the way that she thought about him made her feel like he actually was actually interested in her when he never was, and then used her to get ahead so that he could kill all of her friends and family and leave her alone. He would They would never want anything to do with him. He was never going to tell anybody what they were doing, but you feel like everyone is going to blame you because they say that.
Yeah.
And like they literally say that. Like my dad used to tell me that it was my fault of why these things were happening. That it was I was doing something. And that is very common when people do those things with children, no matter what age. When you're under the age of 18 and somebody is much older, and things with Luke count most definitely. He's like 5 or 6 years older than her.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They make you feel like it's your fault, that you're doing something wrong, that you've done something to make them have that reaction. It's not about you at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
about it's about them and what they want to get out of it and what they get by doing that to you. But you don't realize that because they tell you over and over again that it's your fault, and it feels better to think that it's your fault because you think that you can control your own actions. If it's me, if it's not me, then there is nothing I can control. And so it's honestly scarier to believe that it's not your fault for a while. Like I said in the beginning of the book, like Selena's not an idiot. He must have said something to her to make her think that he wouldn't have hurt Charlie, for her to tell him where where the Princess Andromeda was, or like who was going to go to that ship to try to stop them. And yeah, he told her that he wouldn't hurt Charlie, and then he blew him up
Mm-hmm.
and knew that he was going to kill her the entire time. It was Kronos talking to her, promising that. It
Yeah.
wasn't even Luke at that point. It was Kronos using Luke's voice
Yep.
to talk to her like that for at least 6 months. And so that is like the steps of being groomed until the point where you get to like Selena did, where you don't want to live anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally how it goes. Is once you're like self-aware enough to realize what they've actually been doing to you, and Charlie dying was her realizing like he is never going to listen to me. He's not actually I haven't been doing anything good all of this time. What have I been doing? That
Yeah.
was her fully realizing that and not being able to ignore it anymore. and she did something that would make her life end because she didn't think there was a point to her living anymore. And most people, when you get to that point, when you've been groomed like that, you don't think there's a reason for you to live anymore. Like,
Hmm.
I was so depressed when I was 12. I remember being in at Christmas with my family and being so depressed that I was numb. I didn't care about any of the presents my family gave me. I didn't care about anything. I didn't care nothing. I was in 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and I felt like there was no point to life anymore. Scene with this with Selena of her having a helmet like melted to her face is a horrifying way of dying. And like it is nice that Clarice was like screaming in a way that usually people don't when that stuff goes on, because they usually don't realize like how not much you want to live anymore until things get to a certain point where it's like sometimes too far.
Yeah.
But it needed to be like that. And that is what Selena as a character should represent, is what grooming and abuse like that actually does to you. It destroys your entire life. How people act like Rick is stupid.
Hmm.
They act like he doesn't put these things in his book on purpose, or oh, he didn't realize that Luke was that old. He very purposefully put a storyline in to show the absolute brutality that happens when older people groom younger innocent people. You don't have a
Yeah.
story like this that is meant for middle school age children who are the usual age of children that get groomed by older people.
Yeah.
Though that is
Especially
usually
like,
the age when these things, how many stories have been in the news in the last couple years of children that started getting groomed at the age of 11 or 12 or 13 on goddamn Discord. It's always
yeah.
on Discord, but whenever there's a YouTuber particularly that gets exposed for that, it's always kids that are like 12. That is usually the age they are when they start. Like, you don't write a book that is meant for middle school kids and have a storyline like this by accident.
Hmm.
He put this in on purpose because him and Becky want people to know what this is like.
Yeah.
And it bothers me that it feels just like, of course, somehow the thing that people talk about Selena the most is if she's going to get together with Clarice. That is like seventh down of what is the most popular thing about Selena as a character. Like, I love Selena and I want her to have the chance to be her own person, to be her own character. She
Hmm.
is a kind, like, sweet girl who, like, taught everybody at camp how to ride Pegasus and cares about people and wanted to help people. And the entire reason why Luke was ever able to trap her into that is because she thought that Luke was a good person and because she wanted to help.
Hmm.
She wanted to help when she realized what was going on. And she was like, I'm not that good of a fighter, so I can't really help in battle, but maybe this is a way that I can help and contribute and help everybody.
Clarice goes on full dark Clarice mode after this. The battle does turn, but yeah, as I was saying, I can't help but wonder how much of this is guilt fueled because
I kind of assumed that all of it was.
yeah, because she's out there like completely reckless. She has no armor on. She didn't take it off of Selena. I don't know if that's because it would be disrespectful or she's just like ready to fight immediately.
Mhm.
And so when Clarice and the Ares cabin come in, they immediately start doing work. Percy describes her as a demon on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Um, the monsters end up retreating back, like south from the Empire State Building, if I'm getting my directions correct. And Clarice decides at this moment she's going to go full Achilles. She takes the Draken, she strings it through the eye sockets on her chariot, and starts riding around Fifth Avenue screaming, "Come at me! I'm Clarice, Draken Slayer!"
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, "Where's Kronos?" Like after they drive enough people back.
Yeah, and
Um,
Percy's like, "Oh my god, no, don't do that. He's going to kill
yeah,
you."
and is just like, "I'll watch her. She'll tire herself out. It's okay." Um, yeah, and so Percy's like, "What about camp? Is anybody left there?" And Chris shook his head. Only Argus and the nature spirits. Peleus the dragon is still guarding the tree. They won't last long, I said, but I'm glad you came. And Chris says, I'm sorry it took so long. I tried to reason with Clarice. There's no point in defending camp if you guys die. All our friends are here. I'm sorry it took Selena. And then they get interrupted by Thalia saying, you should go to Olympus, Percy, and go like reinforce there. But this point really sticks in Percy's mind. What he said is like, why would we stay and defend camp when like camp, everyone from camp is here?
Yeah.
Like, there's
Camp
no
is
point.
just like a physical place. It doesn't matter if nobody's there.
Yeah. Um, let's see. So Olympus is in a terrible state. The State Building, like even once he gets into the Empire State Building, the doorman is completely gone. Um, This is where the part happens where Connor and Travis Stroll come up to him and are like, "Hey, we heard about Selena. Was it true?" And they start trying to say the thing about her being the mole, and Percy's like, "She was a hero. That's it. End of story." Like, yeah. And so, let's see. He has those two work on like booby trapping the elevators so that when they get into the lobby of the Empire State Building, they're going to be bottlenecked anyway because some of the monsters are going to have to ride up the elevator. So like um he basically is like, let's make this harder for them. And while he's in the lobby where they also still have their tent set up for the wounded, he sees Grover and oh wait, one more thing before that. He sends Miss O'Leary on a mission we don't know of. He just like whispers in her ear and has her shadow travel.
Hmm.
But yeah, so in the lobby he runs into Grover, and Grover is kneeling over Linnaeus, who has taken a sword to the belly. And one thing that Grover does here, because Linnaeus has been an asshole to Grover so much, um, he's like so close to dying, lights leaving his eyes, and he says, "Did we win?" And Grover says, yes. Thanks to you, Linnaeus, we drove the enemy away." And he's like, "Told you, true leader, true," and like takes his last breath.
Yeah.
Um, and then Grover says a little blessing over him, and he turns into a laurel sapling. Which, like, it's really funny that Grover's reaction was like, "Oh my God, he gets to be a laurel." Yeah.
Like he didn't deserve that.
Yeah, so Grover decides that he needs to plant him in Olympus, and since Percy and Annabeth are headed up there anyway, the three of them go together. Um, the elevator, though, gives them one of those rare moments where it's the three of them again.
Hmm.
And so Annabeth decides, like, not looking at them, just staring ahead at the numbers on the elevator, she says, "You were right about Luke." And Grover and Percy look at each other like that friend, like, wait a second, did she really just say that?
Hmm.
Um, you tried to tell me Luke is no good. I didn't believe you until I heard how he'd used Selena. Now I know. I hope you're happy. And Percy immediately says, that doesn't make me happy. Um,
Hmm.
and this kind of like, it almost stops the conversation. Here's where you can fully picture Arian as Grover because he's like, this is awkward. So he's like, well, sure good to be together again. Arguing, almost dying, abject terror. Oh, look, it's our floor.
Yep.
You get a 100% picture Arian saying that one.
Yeah.
Um,
I will
yeah,
say
so
that part is like that's just really hard. Like for someone like me that's been like the Percy person, it's
yeah,
just always I mentioned that last week, but it just to say it again. It's just really hard that what made her realize that Luke is just not who she thinks it is was Selena when I mean, do people think that when Luke wanted to send 12-year-old Percy barreling into Tartarus by himself that he was gonna like make him a picnic and give him snacks and
or
like
sent
be
a
nice to him?
scorpion
He was
after
going
him, or
he,
like
he
multiple sword fights later.
yeah, like he was going to shove him into sarcophagus and literally force him to hold the body of to hold Kronos so that he didn't have to do it and hold him captive until
Yeah.
Kronos took him over his body. That
So,
has to be what he was going to do with him. And so
yeah,
it's like why wasn't that enough? Like how like Luke also groomed Percy in the first season. He tried. Like
I
he did
wonder.
somewhat successfully do it because he trusted Percy trusted Luke enough to like go out in the woods with him in both versions.
Hmm.
The show and the book, even though they're slightly different,
Yeah.
he thought that Luke was a nice person. He thought that Luke wanted to be his friend. He thought that Luke made him feel like he had a place in this world. And that's like
Yes.
why he's not sure if he does, because at the end of the book is when he realizes that person was actually trying to kill him the whole time. And so after that point, he's like, do I have a place in this world? Because this person made me feel like I belonged, and now
I
I realize
think.
that all of that was a lie. And
Yeah.
so it's one of those frustrating things of like, why wasn't that enough?
Well, I think for Annabeth, what it is in a weird roundabout Athena only thinking of strategy way. I think it's a little more understandable why he's after Percy. Of like, well, Percy's supposed to be the prophecy kid, and if he's on their side, and like, I mean, it makes sense that he'd go after Percy. Maybe that's where like that's the only justification I could think of.
Hmm.
But with Selena, someone being completely innocent, someone being like so, like there's no other way to put it. Like there's no other way to think about it. She's forced to.
Hmm.
Like she has to. And of course she can see a little bit of herself in Selena here in this situation too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it's the reason why it's Selena for her is because
Mhm.
she said to Percy in the last book that she had romantic feelings for Luke at a time.
Mhm.
And so, and like that's part of how she felt about him and why she couldn't let things go. And
Mhm.
so I do think that when she saw what happened to Selena, she was like, that's what would have happened to me if I left with him. Like
Yeah.
that's what would have happened. Like I could have been that person. He wanted probably to do that with her too, but he never really completely got like a chance to necessarily. If she would have left with him when he showed up at her house before
Mhm.
Battle of the Labyrinth, that probably is what would have happened to her too. But I think that's what made her realize, like, oh, like I had those sort of. I thought that he felt that way about me too.
Yeah.
Whoa, he never actually did because he told her the same exact thing. This same thing that he told the same sort of stuff that he told Annabeth. And so it's like, oh, so what he said to me wasn't actually that special because he
It
told
almost
her
makes you
too.
wonder again to what he was telling her in Titan's Curse while she was under, like the
Yeah.
burden of the world. Like what did he actually tell her that like could have been in line with some of this, and maybe even other instances she's probably been replaying all of that in her head
Hmm.
since Selena died.
And I will say that when you hear that someone like said the same exact, that is a way that people realize that someone is lying or someone is manipulating people, especially in like pseudo romantic grooming circumstances, is when you hear that they've said the exact thing to somebody else. Like you hear so many stories like that, even
Hmm.
on just like social media, that like people realize that somebody was cheating on them because they all said the same thing to everybody. That's like
Yeah.
her realizing that about Selena. It is still really brutal that it never like clicked for her when Percy was going through everything that he did with Luke all those years. I am glad that she realized it. I just wish that there was like a version where Selena could have told somebody way before because she would have stopped doing this a lot sooner.
Yeah, I have a version of that that's silly. One of my ex-boyfriends told me he wrote a song for me once,
Hmm.
and he put my name in a part that I didn't need to rhyme, and I didn't notice it until I found him singing it to somebody else months after we broke up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's honestly what, and just to like reiterate this fact is that we're talking about Annabeth realizing that about Luke when she's 15 and Luke is 23.
Yep. So, yeah, she's having this realization while they're going up in the elevator together, wanting Percy, or like almost expecting Percy to say, I told you so, but I love that he doesn't. I love that his
Mm-mm.
reaction is like, I'm not happy about this. I've never been happy about this. Like,
No.
hello. And
That's one of
so,
the things that's hard when you're in that place is
yeah,
like when you see things of what you think is going on, you don't want to be right. but you also know that it's one of those things like you know that you are. You don't want to be right about it. Like there's
Yeah.
so many times when things are just in like social media land. I'll see something and I'll want to be wrong about someone, but I know that I'm not. And it's one of those things of I wish that this wasn't true, but it is, and I'm not gonna like throw it in people's faces as much as it would sometimes you want to because you just get tired of people not listening or not believing you. It's like,
Hmm.
but I don't want you to actually go through any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna like even with the crazy Epic the musical situation. Like, I didn't go to like the people that said that stuff to me and was like, I was right about that little dick. Even the one that like changed their mind, I didn't do that because it's like there's I know that they're upset that they feel betrayed by that person. I don't need to say that. And I'm
Hmm.
sorry that the person that they look up to ended up being somebody like that. That's sad.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be true. You just know that it is.
Yeah. So yeah, they're interrupted by the ding of the elevator at this point. They walk into Olympus proper, and he says it's a depressing sight. No fires were lit in the braziers, the windows were dark, the streets were deserted, and the doors were barred. Only movement was in the parks, which had been set up as hospitals, with Will Solace kind of like leading the charge and taking care of people. As him and Annabeth are passing people and Grover's off planting Linnaeus, he him and Annabeth are trying to do like, great job, guys. You'll be back out there in no time. Um, but one person who he runs into in particular here is something I think we could talk a little bit about, which is he does run into Dionysus's son Pollux, the one who in the last reading that he had said, "Please protect my son."
Hmm.
And Pollux has a broken arm and is like, "I still have one good arm. Like, send me back out there." And Percy tells him, "I need you to promise me you're going to stay here," and doesn't give him any information. What Percy even says though is, it wasn't like we were good friends or anything, but I wasn't going to tell him it was a request from his dad. That would just embarrass him.
Hmm.
And so, like, really thinking about, I need him to do this and I need him to not question me, but at the same time, I'm also not trying to make him feel bad about it.
Yeah. And I liked how he said like that he looked relieved when he told him like no, just stay here. Because
Yeah.
even if the kid is like I can go out there with only one arm, it's like
Hmm.
but don't actually do that, please. Like no, none
Yeah.
of them want to actually be doing this fight. They're just being forced to.
Well, Dionysus has been nothing but a jerk to Percy over and
Hmm.
over again. Even in that chapter where he was at the party with him, it was like, remember my training, and it's like, what training did you give me, bro? You told me to get you a Diet Coke and you pretend
He
to be my
calls him
dad. Like,
he calls him Pedro Jorgensen.
yeah, he calls him every name but his own after
Yeah.
like the first time that they meet.
Hmm.
And so yeah, it's like he really doesn't owe Dionysus anything, but this goes to show Percy's character too for me, in that like he can't really not keep to something like that because like even though the promise was to Dionysus, he knows it's for another demigod.
Hmm.
And so it's just kind of one of those like I guess.
Yeah, I'll help protect this kid, especially since his sibling died last year.
Yes. As they're going through Olympus again, after that, everything is really, really sad. And he sees a hearth with Hestia and Bessie swimming in a sad little sphere next to her, and it, it's
Bessie.
it's almost like they're like together for warmth in that place because they're both like warm figures. Um, so yeah, Bessie lets out a half-hearted moo. Um, but Rachel is also there in the throne room, and she's holding Pandora's jar, which they kind of left there for safekeeping. Um, she's almost hypnotized by it. Even she's like, I can see through it. I can see hope in there. Like, we should open this. We need hope. Like,
She's like, no, no, no.
no, yeah, and so Annabeth and Grover kind of walk off at this point, and Percy takes Rachel to go talk to Hestia. This is a really cute thing.
Hmm.
He sees his mother, Paul, and himself eating Thanksgiving dinner. His friends around the campfire at Camp Half Blood, singing and roasting marshmallows. Rachel and him driving in Paul's Prius. So he's replaying all of these warm memories, and
Hmm.
it helps him relax. He realizes Rachel's also looking at the fire. He has no idea if she's seeing the same things or different things. Probably different things is what we assume. And she also seems to like relax instantly, let go of the tension in her body. And she tells Hestia tells Rachel to claim your place at the hearth. You must let go of your distractions. It is the only way you will survive. And Rachel immediately says, I understand. And she essentially, Percy says, she dumped me, but I didn't know we were together.
Yeah,
Like,
we were never together, but it still felt like she dumped me.
yeah, so she starts off with like, I thought when I came here I was coming for you, but what I was so attracted to you about was that you were unlocking these things for me.
Hmm.
And I just needed to know more about it. So I don't think our destinies are actually intertwined. I just I I was really drawn to you. And Percy's like, so she's cutting me off and like what is going on here? Annabeth's
Hmm.
angry with me. My parents are asleep somewhere on the streets. Like what is going on?
Yep.
And he's supposed to feel some sort of like comfort here.
Hmm.
Let's see. I'm trying to think where to pick up next. Um, So this is where the Chris Rodriguez things come back in. There's no point in defending camp if you guys die. All our friends are here, and he also remembers Nico with his dad saying the same thing of like, if Olympus falls, like what's left? You should go defend your family. Yeah, so he realizes though, thinking these two things together, I know what I need to do. And so one thing that he does is he gives Pandora's jar to Hestia. And
Hmm.
I love what he says here. I don't know if Rick took this from somewhere else because it sounds like one of those things that could definitely be in a classical work somewhere. Um, and she's like, why are you giving this to me? I'm not an important god. And he says, because hope survives best at the hearth. And
Hmm.
so it's interesting, and it's all of the things combined when you think about it, right? The fact that seeing those visions of the things that he's protecting helped renew something in him.
Hmm.
It's Chris Rodriguez's words, it's Nico's actions, all of those things. It just like he got hope again at the hearth. It's actually kind of cool that it works so well in this scene.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, he realizes I know what I need to do, marches to his father's throne, and then he basically is telling Grover and Annabeth, because it's a throne for a 20-foot tall person, can you hoist me up here because I can barely reach it? And both of them are like, are you stupid? People get zapped to oblivion for that. Why would you want to climb his throne? And he's like, I need to get his attention. I can't
Hmm.
think of any other way to do it, so I'm just gonna do it. And they're like, okay, we're gonna get his attention, all right. Um, so uh, Poseidon shows up and immediately is just yelling, "Who dares?" And then he notices it's Percy and he slows down. Um, Percy, what exactly are you doing on my throne? I'm sorry, Father, I need to get your attention. And this, fucking Poseidon, this is a very dangerous thing to do, even for you. If I hadn't looked before I blasted, you would now be a puddle of seawater. Why isn't it your policy to look before you blast, sir?
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Also, while Percy is on this throne, I just thought this was a funny little detail. Before Poseidon shows up, he's thinking, sitting in this throne, I felt like I had the entire sea at my command, vast cubic miles of ocean churning with power and mystery. Why should Poseidon listen to anyone? Why shouldn't he be the greatest of the 12? So he's literally feeling like the power of being in control of the ocean at the same
Hmm.
time. It's so funny. And so it kind of makes sense why they protect their throne so much.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so he's like he decides to tell Poseidon what's happening, like in where he's at, because Poseidon's still fighting his own battle under sea, and he's basically asking him, "I need you to join the fight for Olympus because." it's your family, like we need to do it. And he's like, okay, but they're gonna destroy my home, and like I just finished remodeling it. Um, do you have any idea how long I've worked on remodeling this palace? The game room alone took 600 years. And Percy's like, Dad, come on.
I
Um,
know.
yeah.
I really liked this part about how like no one around Poseidon just like thought like maybe we should just leave.
Yeah, and so um Poseidon's reaction, very well, it shall be as you say, but my son, pray this works. And he's like, I am praying. I'm talking to you.
That's how
I
that
love
works.
smart ass sassy Percy.
Always,
Um,
especially with Poseidon.
yeah, and of course while he was talking to Poseidon too, he had to ask how Tyson was doing, and he's like, he's doing great in battle. And for peanut butter is kind of a interesting war cry.
I love Tyson so much.
Yeah, so Percy's just like happy that Tyson's fighting. He successfully convinced Poseidon, and so now everybody's going to be working together to defend Olympus, which like reuniting or uniting them is something that I think Kronos just continually discounts when you think of like the Ares cabin and stuff
Mhm.
too. He
Mhm.
just I mean, even the United Nations, what he said
Mhm.
about that, he thinks
Oh, they would
that
never
the
get
idea
along.
of humans like coming together is stupid and that they're not
Mhm.
going to do it and it's against their nature. Um, which, like we've been shown throughout history, is not necessarily true. People form societies when there are groups of people together. It may not always work, and ours certainly feels like it doesn't work sometimes now, but I do still believe in the power of people working together.
And honestly, things like when things go bad is when that stuff stands out even more than normal.
Hmm.
Um, which is how many different ways that people try to protest against the people that we don't like. There's a lot of that going on the last however many months. It's just going to keep
Yeah.
going, but like that happens a lot in the as a response to that.
Hmm.
And so I still always think it's funny that Poseidon and nobody else ever considered like, what if you just leave your home because nobody is there anyway? If they're attacking you when you're there, just go somewhere else and then you can help everybody because it's the same thing with like what Percy realized with camp. Like camp is just like a place. If it's
Hmm.
empty because everybody else is fighting somewhere else or dead, like the place itself doesn't matter. Like why would you protect land over human life?
Pretty much, yeah.
White people like me, why would you do that? Land doesn't matter. People do.
Yeah, so he ends the conversation with Poseidon, and apparently with great timing, because A, Poseidon gets attacked, and then B, when he stops the conversation, he's back in like reality because he was hearing that conversation in his head. Grover and Annabeth are like, dude, you're smoking. Like, you're literally smoking right now. Um, so you could assume that Poseidon taking or speaking in his head like that was like on the same level of showing his true form kind of thing, that
Mhm.
he really only survived that because he has the Achilles blessing and like yeah, or curse. Yeah. So then we go to chapter 18. My parents go commando. And after this is the part. It's early on in the chapter. Campers and Hunter lay wounded on the ground. Clarice must have lost the fight with the Hyperborean giant because she and her chariot were frozen in a block of ice. The centaurs were nowhere to be seen. Either they panicked and ran or they'd been disintegrated. Um, so basically, they are like really, really torn apart battle wise now, even the Ares cabin. And Kronos' vanguard is coming. So we have Ethan Nakamura leading some Dracaeni and two Hyperboreans. Percy notes that he doesn't see Prometheus, but the slimy weasel's probably hiding back at their headquarters. And Kronos
Mhm.
himself stood at the front with his scythe in hand. Um, let's see. Chiron tries to face him. He's like, um, so Luke's spotty, but Kronos says, "Step aside, little son." And Percy's like, "This is so weird," like seeing Luke call him son.
Yeah.
But Chiron just he says, "I'm not afraid." He basically stands up to him until he gets blasted backwards. Um, But he gets like to the point because Chiron is mainly an archer that he runs out of arrows. He has to like fight with a sword. But as we know, Luke is the best sword fighter from camp.
Hmm.
So, Chiron knowing that sword's a weakness and going against a Titan who I assume is absorbing the powers of Luke as well, would have his, like his dexterity, his speed, which Percy knows Kronos was as quick as Luke. He had his fighting skill.
Hmm.
It's still that merging happening between them. So he knocks Chiron's blade aside and he makes a little explosion that just knocks Chiron into a building. Rubble falls over him, and like they can't go save him right away. They can't really figure it out on their own. Um, Annabeth here decides that she's had enough, and so
Yeah.
she turns on Luke. She throws her knife at him, or no, sorry, not throws it yet. She goes up to him and she tries to stab him in his collarbone. Like if he's wearing a chest plate, he would have the space here. So she tries to like stab him, but it bounces off of him because of the Achilles curse.
Hmm.
And I think it also dislocates her shoulder again when she
Yeah.
tries to stab him. Let's see. So Percy tries to move her out of the way because he was right about to like swing the scythe at her, and she screams, "I hate you!" But Percy is like, I wasn't sure who she was talking to, me or Luke or Kronos. Um, but he tells her like, I'm the one who has to fight him, like not you. But she's trying to say this is my fight too. Um, but yeah, so Kronos chimes in here. He's like, well, Luke wanted to spare you, but that's not happening. And, you know, he's ready to take her out, but just then they hear a dog howl, and it's Miss O'Leary. Miss
Hmm.
O'Leary has come back. The mission that Percy sent her on, it turns out, was to go find Nico.
Hmm.
And so Nico comes with an army of the dead. He also has Hades along with him. Um,
I love the
so,
part when he where Percy says he looks down the street
yeah.
and there's like nothing there and he sees like tiny little emo Nico standing
Yes.
there and he's just like Nico and he's like, "Oh, hey."
Yeah, a small figure in black armor. I can't wait until we get this on screen and the edits
Mhm.
with like Black Parade or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's gonna be hilarious. But yeah, so Nico has his army of undead. Kronos is trying to, like still play I'm not scared, like your undead are no match for us. He says to Nico, "Son of Hades, do you love death so much you wish to experience it?" And Nico says, "Your death would be great for me." Kronos replies, "I'm immortal, you fool. I have escaped Tartarus. You have no business here, no chance to live." Um, and just then, the thing that Nico does, where cracks in the earth appear and all of the dead bodies start coming
Everywhere.
out everywhere. Yes, and the Titan army is even getting a little bit afraid at this sight, but Kronos has to tell them, "Hold your down. The dead are no match for us." Um, when Hades shows up, he's in a chariot with Demeter and Persephone riding behind him.
Mhm.
And it's interesting that we get a description of the Helm of Darkness here, too. So Hades wore black armor and a cloak the color of fresh blood. On top of his pale head was the Helm of Darkness, a crown that radiated pure terror. It changed shape as I watched, from a dragon's head to a circle of black flames to a wreath of human bones. But that wasn't the scary part. The helm reached into my mind and ignited my worst nightmares, uh, my most secret fears. I wanted to crawl into a hole and hide, and I can tell the enemy army felt the same way. Only
Mhm.
Kronos' power and authority kept his ranks from fleeing. So Hades automatically starts up with like, "What's up, Dad?" Is my son has here convinced me that perhaps I should prioritize my list of enemies. As much as I dislike certain upstart demigods, it would not do for Olympus to fall. I would miss bickering with my siblings, and there is one thing we all agree on. It is that you are a terrible father. or and if there's one thing we can agree on. So
Mm-hmm.
Demeter agrees with him here. She's like, no appreciation of agriculture, which like is kind of funny going back to that golden age. Like they didn't have to actually till the land to get any
Mm-hmm.
food. Um, and Persephone's like, oh my God, mother. um, so yeah, they start fighting. Crotos says, I don't have time for this. Sticks his struck the ground with his scythe, and a crack basically circles around the Empire State Building, basically creating, like a line of separation there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he's sealing them in. He's collapsing the magical barriers around Manhattan, cutting off just the building around us. And then people start waking up. And Percy almost immediately notices, oh shit, my
Oh no
parents
no.
woke up. Yeah. So Paul and his mom get out of the Prius. He's trying to yell at them, like, don't, but at the same time trying to make sure that Crotos/Luke doesn't see that he notices his mom. Demeter's powers are kind of interesting. She's able to turn an entire column of giants into a wheat field. Persephone is able to change the Dracaena spears into sunflowers. Um, and meanwhile, Paul and Sally are running around trying to get closer.
Ethan's
Um,
rethinking his life decisions.
yeah, so Paul grabs a sword from a fallen hero at this point, while Percy's still trying to get to them. And it says he did a pretty fine job at keeping a Dracaena busy. He stabbed her in the gut and she disintegrated. And Percy's like, Paul?
Paul.
Yeah. And he says, I hope that was a monster I just killed. I want to know what he was seeing.
Yeah.
Um, and he tells Percy, I was a Shakespearean actor in college. I picked up a little sword play. And Percy's just like, oh my gosh,
Oh
he's,
my
he's
god.
so cool. Um, so yeah, and while he's looking for his mom, she's rummaging in a police car and finds the police shotgun.
And shoot
She's,
somebody.
yeah, it's so funny. He's like, oh, mom, like, where did you learn how to fire a shotgun? She's like, right now.
I know
Um,
Percy's like having like seven different like panic attacks, watching his parents get closer to him, and he's like, "Don't go, don't come by me," and then
yes.
also in just like danger, like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, and I mean, we've heard a little bit about Sally seeing through the mist has faded a little bit as she's aged, but here she's able to. I feel like that's that mom superpower of my kid is in danger, I'm going
Hmm.
to do something about it. I mean, the fact that she picks up a shotgun and just like figures it out, I imagine it had some sort of safety on it. I would have no idea how to disengage a safety on a shotgun.
None.
Yeah, so there's something to it of you get the sense of nobody's fucking with this New York mom and her kid.
Hmm.
Um yeah, so Nico and Sally and Paul are kind of all in the same area too. So Annabeth's trying to urge Percy on like more towards the fight with Kronos. And Nico, Paul, and Sally are like, we're gonna stay back here. We got this. Like, just go. Um, and before they take off, Percy sends Miss O'Leary to find Chiron, assuming that Miss O'Leary is gonna be able to dig him out.
I remember when I
Um,
read this book for the first time, I was like really upset that Chiron was dead because I thought he
yeah,
was at this part. The first time I read
yeah.
this book, he's not. But
He's Yeah. It depends on like, because of course there is the when he got stellified and like he wasn't a god anymore. He gave his godhood to Heracles, but I assume this Chiron is also immortal-ish. I don't know.
hmm.
Um, yeah, so Percy sees Miss O'Leary start to dig, and then he, Annabeth, Thalia, and Grover race towards the elevators in Olympus. So that's the end of where we got here. Obviously, we're so close to the end, that little chunk there. Um, the other part about being close to the end too is, I mean, they're face to face with Luke. I don't think there's going to be any more rest before he has to actually face Luke in the end.
Yeah.
So we are at the like the apex of the battle.
Hmm. And one thing you I have to think about is the whole thing with the oracle, that the curse that Hades put on it was that it would be like fixed when one of his kids is like a hero,
Hmm.
and that pretty much right now just happened. And Rachel
Yes.
is basically acting as the oracle right now. So somewhere right now, May is like waking up in her house and as herself.
Oh God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things that came up for me with this one. So, I mean, we've been talking about like, oh my gosh, Rick wants to pull in other writers and like let's learn him, but as much about this world. I am just like I'm a little in awe of something that I think he might have missed himself, and it gives a good avenue for writing a book about different characters. And it's when Percy first gets to camp, Annabeth tells him like, you know, you have to be a year rounder for most of us because we have so many monsters after us. Unless maybe you're a Demeter or a Aphrodite kid, you're not going to be very powerful and nobody's going to take you seriously. So, like, you're not going to be as chased by monsters. They're not as attracted to you. And while, like the monsters not being as attracted to them is true, we just had Selena lead the whole Ares cabin into battle,
Hmm.
and she held her own for a good amount of time. I mean, considering that she wasn't somebody who ever went into battle in the first place.
Hmm.
She came up with that strategy completely on her own of like, I'm going to steal the armor so they think I'm Clarice, and that way people will listen to me. Um, and then also we saw Demeter in battle, like in this part too, where Demeter just changes giants into a golem of wheat. Like, there's stuff to do here. There's stuff to do here. I think that Rick could have leaned into a little bit more
Well,
instead of make it like these kids, their powers aren't as good. Hmm.
Annabeth is biased because Luke told her that. Luke
Yeah, that's a good
absolutely
point.
told her that. Like, Luke told her shit like that. Luke would think that you are weak
Hmm.
if you were from Aphrodite or the Demeter cabin. Like, that's probably part of why he went after Selena. But he wouldn't think that kids from that cabin without, like, physically strong powers to, like, show off would
Hmm.
be anything. Like, that's part of the whole thing with Annabeth. You always have to remember is for what she tells Percy, especially in the first book, is that she's been told things about the world and about camp and how things work from Luke.
That's
And
true.
within like the entire series of the books, that entire idea of how he presents the world and how things work slowly get dismantled by Percy because Percy doesn't co-sign any of those things because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not like she heard it from Chiron. The thing
Yeah.
is, though, Rick hasn't written like strong characters like this. Selena, a little bit, yes, but like I know he hasn't written a main character Demeter kid. Um, and I would love to explore, like the Athena kids even. Why do none of them weave? I'm telling you, someone needs to be a weaver in that group. And I know
Hmm.
it's not an impressive power. Like, I feel like there's ways you can make it supernatural, Spider-Man-ish. But, which I know is a
That
little
makes
bit of a
sense.
contradiction with, like, Arachne. But, yeah, we're due to chapter 21, and then we'll have one more episode of this, it looks like.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, we'll probably start getting Percy premiere stuff after that, content-wise. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
They'll at some point people will start getting like invited to that, I guess is the best way to put it. They'll put out their last big trailer, for season 1, the big actual trailer with like like the actual scenes in it, not just like hints. Came out in like the beginning of November when it came out when the show came out at like the end of December. And so it's probably going to be like a little over a month away, which is like in like 2 weeks.
I feel like I saw someone say that Rick's seen a copy of the longer
Yeah.
trailer. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're getting it soon. It's in production. It's being edited, so we know it's happening.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's just a matter of that on a random day at like 2:45 p.m. they'll just
Yeah.
drop it out of nowhere.
If they drop it, we'll make sure to get reactions before we let ourselves see it.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll leave it there, and we will see you guys next week for the almost ending of The
Hmm.
Last Olympian. All right, bye.
Bye.